The message came at 11:47 p.m., late enough to feel planned, late enough to hurt more. It was from my mom. No greeting, no warning, just one sentence. "We've agreed you're no longer part of the family." I stared at the screen, waiting for the rest. Then another message followed. "Don't come to any gatherings." That was it. No reason, no explanation, no conversation. Before I could even breathe, something else happened. My sister Claire liked the message. Not a reply, not a question. Approval. Then silence. No one defended me. No one asked what happened. No one said this felt extreme. It was like a door closed. And everyone heard the lock click. My hands didn't shake. What I felt wasn't shock. It was recognition. Because suddenly, years of small moments lined up perfectly. The missed calls, the quiet exclusions, the way decisions were always made without me. This wasn't sudden. This was just the first time they said it out loud. I didn't type right away. I let the chat sit there, let the weight of their words settle. Then I wrote one sentence. Calm. Clear. Impossible to misunderstand. Thanks for confirming. I'll cancel all the auto payments. I hit send. At 11:48 p.m., the chat was silent. At 11:49 p.m., someone started typing, then stopped. At 11:50 p.m., my phone rang. I didn't answer, because by 12:03 a.m., everything they thought was stable was already starting to fall apart. I wasn't always cut off. For most of my life, I was useful. That's the word they would never say out loud, but it explained everything. I was the one who stepped in quietly, the one who fixed problems before they became loud, the one who paid attention when everyone else looked away. If something broke, I handled it. If a bill was late, I noticed. If someone needed help just for a little while, I showed up. No one thanked me. They didn't have to. Help was expected. Silence was required. My sister Claire liked to call it family responsibility. My mom called it doing the right thing. I called it normal. For a long time, I didn't ask questions, didn't ask for credit, didn't ask what would happen if I ever stopped, because stopping wasn't an option. Anytime I hesitated, my mom would say, "Family doesn't abandon family." Funny how that rule only worked one way. I started noticing patterns I couldn't unsee. I was included when something needed handling, excluded when something needed celebrating. I was trusted with details, ignored in decisions. They didn't treat me like a daughter or a sister. They treated me like infrastructure, something that just works until it doesn't. And when my mom sent that message at 11:47 p.m., it finally clicked. They didn't cut me off because I caused problems. They cut me off because they thought I was replaceable. They thought whatever I handled would keep handling itself. They were wrong. And they were about to find out exactly how wrong. They never asked how much I was carrying. They never asked what I was covering. They never asked what would happen if I stopped. Because asking would have meant noticing, and noticing would have meant admitting. They relied on me more than they liked to believe. Claire loved to act independent. She talked about standing on her own, about not needing anyone. But every time something went wrong, my phone lit up. Mom loved to talk about sacrifice, about how much she'd done for us, about how tired she was. But every time a problem appeared, it quietly slid toward me. No one called it help. They called it temporary. They called it just this once. And I let them. Because each time I said yes, it bought me a little peace. Each time I covered something, it kept the family calm. But calm came at a cost. And the cost always landed on me. The strange part? They stopped seeing it. The more reliable I became, the less visible I was. They assumed the ground would always hold, that the lights would stay on, that the payments would clear, that nothing would ever fall apart. So when my mom typed, "We've agreed you're no longer part of the family," she didn't think about consequences. She thought she was drawing a line. What she didn't realize was that she was pulling the wrong thread. And when you pull the wrong thread, everything starts to loosen. Slowly at first, quietly. then all at once. I didn't sleep after that message. Not because I was upset, because my mind wouldn't stop connecting dots. Mom's words replayed over and over. We've agreed. Agreed with who? When? About something this final? That phrase bothered me more than the message itself, because decisions like that don't appear suddenly. They build, quietly, behind closed doors. I started replaying the last few months. The way invites came later than usual. The way plans were shared after they were already set. The way my input slowly stopped being requested. I wasn't being pushed away all at once. I was being phased out, piece by piece. The message at 11:47 p.m. wasn't the beginning. It was the confirmation. I checked my phone again. More missed calls. Voicemails I didn't open. Not apologies. Not explanations. Panic! That's when I realized something important. They hadn't expected my reply. They hadn't planned for resistance. They definitely hadn't planned for consequences. They thought cutting me off would be clean, simple, final. They didn't understand how much of their normal depended on me staying quiet. I didn't feel angry. I felt steady. Because once something breaks this cleanly, there's no reason to hold it together anymore. And somewhere between midnight and morning, I made a decision. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, out of clarity. If they were serious about cutting me out, I would take them at their word, fully, completely, and let the truth do what it does best. I didn't warn them. I didn't explain what I meant. I didn't send a follow-up message. I just started changing things, quietly, one setting at a time. Auto payments I'd set up years ago, accounts they forgot were under my name, services they assumed just worked. I didn't rush. I checked dates, read fine print, made sure every change was clean and final. No drama, no mistakes. What surprised me wasn't how easy it was. It was how much there was. Things I had agreed to temporarily. Things that were supposed to end next month. Things no one remembered asking me to handle. I realized something uncomfortable. They hadn't cut me off because they didn't need me. They cut me off because they thought I'd never stop. Because reliability looks a lot like permanence. Until it disappears. By midnight, my phone was quiet. Too quiet. No more messages. No more typing bubbles. That's when I knew they hadn't noticed yet. They were sleeping, confident, believing the world would look the same in the morning. I finished the last change at 12:02 a.m. I locked my phone, set it face down, and went to bed. Not angry, not shaking, certain. Because when people remove you from their life, they rarely check what you were holding together. And when they finally do, it's never at a convenient time. The first call came at 7:12 a.m. I watched it ring. Mom. I let it stop. 30 seconds later, it rang again. Then a text appeared. Did you change something? I didn't reply. Another message followed. Some payments didn't go through. That was fast. Too fast. Which meant whatever I had stopped wasn't optional. By 8 a.m., Claire joined in. What did you do? Things aren't working. This isn't funny. Funny. They always said that when something stopped benefiting them, I stayed quiet. Not because I was scared. Because silence was finally doing the work for me. Messages stacked up. Service alerts. Missed confirmations. Confused questions. I could feel the panic growing on the other side of the screen. Because problems they never saw before were suddenly everywhere. Bills they didn't track. Accounts they didn't manage. Systems they didn't understand. All failing at once. By mid-morning, the tone changed. Mom stopped accusing. She started asking, "Can you call me? We need to talk." This was a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. That word only appears when control starts slipping. I didn't answer. Because this wasn't confusion. This was discovery. They were learning in real time how much of their stability had been resting on someone they'd just erased. And the more they learned, the harder it became to pretend they hadn't made a mistake. By noon, silence wasn't working anymore. Mom stopped texting. She started calling. Again, and again, and again. Voicemails stacked up without me listening to a single one. By 12:03 p.m., Claire sent a message that finally cracked the mask. Please answer. This is serious. Serious. That word only shows up when something can't be fixed quietly. I pictured them pacing, refreshing screens, checking balances they'd never checked before. Then another message came through. Why are accounts locked? What did you cancel? Who do we call? Questions they should have asked years ago. Questions they assumed they'd never need answers to. I stayed quiet because every unanswered message did something important. It forced them to sit with the reality that I wasn't stepping in this time. The next call came from a number I didn't recognize. A service provider. Then another. Then another. Each one asking the same thing in different words. Can you confirm this change? We're missing authorization. The primary contact is no longer active. Primary contact. That phrase landed harder than any insult because it meant the truth was finally visible. Not in feelings, not in arguments, in systems. By early afternoon, Mom sent one last message. Not angry, not demanding. Small. Please, we need you. I read it once, then put my phone face down because needing someone after declaring they're no longer family doesn't undo the damage. It just proves how much they misjudged what they were losing. They didn't need me to explain. By mid-afternoon, the truth was already spreading through the cracks. I know because the messages changed again. Not questions now. Not blame. Fear. Mom sent one sentence that said more than all the others combined. Who else knows about this? That's when I understood. This wasn't just inconvenience. This was exposure. Things I handled quietly weren't just bills. They were connections, authorizations, names attached to systems no one else knew how to access. Claire finally said what she'd been avoiding all day. We can't fix this ourselves. There it was. The admission they never planned to make. They weren't asking me to come back as family. They were asking me to come back as infrastructure, as the thing that keeps everything running while they take credit for the stability. I didn't respond, because responding would have softened the truth. And the truth didn't need softening. It needed to sit. Minutes passed. Then another message from Mom. We didn't mean it like that. That sentence came too late. You don't accidentally remove someone from your life. You don't accidentally say, we've agreed. Those words are chosen. So are their consequences. By the time evening arrived, the messages slowed. Not because things were fixed, because they finally understood they weren't. They were running out of options. And the one person they never thought they'd need again was no longer available. The messages stopped sometime after sunset. Not because the problems were solved, because they had reached the edge of them. I could tell. The tone had changed too much. No more accusations. No more commands. Just short, careful messages that sounded like people walking through a dark room. Mom wrote once more. We didn't think it would be like this. That sentence carried everything. They thought cutting me off was symbolic. They thought it was emotional. They thought it was reversible. They never thought it was structural. They never thought it touched real systems, real responsibilities, real consequences. Claire finally said something honest. We didn't know you handled all of this. Not, thank you. Not, we're sorry. Just surprise. As if discovering a fact erased the damage. I didn't answer, because by now, the realization was doing more work than my words ever could. They were learning that support doesn't announce itself, that reliability hides, that the quiet person in the room is often the one holding the walls up. And when you remove that person, the room doesn't explode right away. It sags, then cracks, then gives in. They were standing in that moment now, feeling the weight of what they dismissed for years. Understanding, too late, that family isn't something you declare someone out of without checking what they were carrying. One last message came in from Mom. We need to talk about what comes next. I read it once. Then I put my phone down, because some conversations only happen after the truth has finished speaking. And the truth wasn't done yet. They never apologized. Not really. They circled around it. They hinted. They spoke carefully, like words themselves had become risky. But no one said, "We were wrong." And that told me everything I needed to know. I didn't go back. Not to fix things. Not to explain myself. Not to soften what they felt. Because cutting someone out of your life isn't a message you accidentally send. It's a choice. And choices don't disappear just because the consequences arrive. I kept my distance. Not out of anger. Out of respect for myself. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't managing anyone else's panic. I wasn't holding something together that didn't want me in it. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was clean. No late-night messages. No emergencies. No invisible weight pressing on my shoulders. Just space. Space to breathe. Space to notice how calm life feels when you're no longer maintaining it for everyone else. They said I wasn't part of the family anymore. What they didn't realize was how much of my life had already moved on. Because sometimes, the moment someone removes you is the exact moment you finally get to stand on your own and keep it that way.